SCUMBAG for the Stomping Ground, powered by Wow Hydrate and available on DAZN. Good afternoon, Mr. Smith. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. Just been in Ipswich for the Wardley Hooney presser. Eddie had it stuck on him by Magic. Did you not
hands.
see?
No. Do you know what? I've had a week of no social media because I dropped my phone. I actually, after the New York show, I had a few days away, and I dropped my phone in the pool, and it broke. So I had to get a new phone, and then I realised I don't know the login to any of my accounts. So I've had no social media, which in many ways is actually very nice. I must say.
Are you relieved a bit?
It's amazing. But the only problem is you don't really know what's going on in the world. But also at the same time, you can just focus on your own stuff rather than looking at anything else. But the other problem is then people say to you, "What about this?" And you go, "What?" And you haven't got a clue about it. So no, I haven't seen that. Although I am getting my Instagram back today, apparently. So.
Did you miss any important calls? Did you come back to Turkey
you know
Al Sheikh 99 in brackets?
Do you know what? I did it at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I didn't get a new phone until 11:30 that night. And then when I got the phone, I didn't know the password for anything, so nothing was working. And 7 hours, it's quite worrying actually, 7 hours, no phone, what goes through your mind? But then after a week of no social media, you go, actually it's quite nice. You have no clue of like good things or bad things that are going on. You just get on with what's going on.
Living in the world of Frank Smith.
Yeah, exactly. You're just dealing with what you got to deal with.
What happened in that world of Frank Smith?
Lots. Been busy. Lots of planning. Made a couple of big fights for next few months, so it's good.
Can I ask you about the 5v5 plans? Because I think originally it was like, yep, 5v5 will be in May. Then the fighters were put forward, is what His Excellency said. Then there was like a mid-August date that I heard in a couple of interviews. But I typed in Matchroom vs Queensbury 5v5, looked at the latest news articles. Not been too much of recent, so have things stalled or still on track for a 5v5?
Always discussions ongoing about potential fights, etc. Nothing set for the 5v5 yet, but let's see. You know, it was a great concept the first time around. I'm sure we'll see it again at some point, for sure.
Johnny Fisher, Dave Allen. Big night for Johnny this has turned out to be. And I've been saying this, when you look at the UK calendar, because obviously the first one was on the Usyk Fury bill, so a lot of the attention would be about that. This has actually kind of morphed into a pretty big night in the UK calendar.
I think when you look at Johnny Fisher, he is like in the top 10 of British fighters, you know, in terms of stars in the sport right now. You know, and Dave Allen, obviously someone who's been around the sport and got a great personality and a huge fan base for many years and been in with many of the big names of the heavyweight division. You know, so it's a fight that people can resonate with. It's a fight that people are interested in. And I think when you look at the first fight, the fight stole the show in some ways in terms of the back and forth of it, but it maybe got lost amongst obviously the size of that event. It was the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. It was huge. Or sorry, it wasn't, was it? It was the rematch of the previous undisputed heavyweight championship.
Whatever it was massive.
Yeah, it was massive. It was a massive occasion, massive fight. So sometimes you get lost amongst that. This fight, it's going to be a sellout in the Copper Box come Saturday night. We've seen the atmosphere from previous Johnny Fisher shows, and fair play to Johnny Fisher, getting straight back in there, because it was a tough fight the first time around, but he wants to prove himself. He wants to go in there and do a job, and I'm excited for what's to come.
You know that play your cards right, or play the cards dealt, whatever it was called on, that was brilliant, by the way. But did you watch it and think that it looked like someone who was kind of playing the younger man and the younger fighter? Dave was literally looking at him saying, this is what I'd done the first time around, these were my tricks. And I felt like there was kind of a man gaining the upper hand, as a sense. I know he's a more experienced man and a more experienced fighter, but it looked like it was kind of old man in him in a conversation sense as well.
Look, I think experience is always going to play a part in it. Dave has been in there, as I said before, with many of the big names over the years of, the past 10 years of the heavyweight division. He's sparred them all, he's fought many of them as well, and he knows what he's good at. And, it's all part and parcel of the game. And it's all part and parcel of the experience for Johnny Fisher as well. If he's going to get to the level he believes he can get to, he had a great... Look, the Babic win, he knocked him out in the first round. And when you're going in and then stepping up the levels, and Dave Allen is definitely a step up in the levels we saw, that experience, as much as it was a very tough fight and many people believe Dave Allen won, the experience he would have gained from that night, will set him up, for this fight going into it. I think you'll see a different Johnny Fisher. I think you'll see a different Dave Allen. Even better version of both of them. And I think, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Johnny's trained like an animal, obviously. Dave Allen, I'm sure the same. Look, experience is always going to play a key part of it. The difference is now Johnny's got that extra experience, and what he showed in December was that he's also got a set of bollocks.
He did 100% show he's got a set of bollocks, and that might have been lost in the Backlash. Talking about the Backlash, I spoke to Gareth Davis yesterday. He said he's going to be here today. He said he tried to make eye contact and kind of build a bridge at the launch presser when was that 6-7 weeks ago, and he was kind of cold-shouldered.
What, by Big John or Little John?
By both Johns, by both Johns, and Mrs. Fisher as well. How do you expect that dynamic to be? Because that has actually been probably the biggest takeaway from the fight, the Backlash, the response that...
the biggest takeaway was...
Big John wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Team Fisher weren't happy. The media response has been pretty big.
Yeah, look, I think when it's family, there's a lot more... There's emotion. As everything with family involved, there's emotion involved. And that plays into it. I think, look, a journalist can have their view, obviously, and that's the business we're in. I think, people react to things in different ways, don't they?
Was it an unfair reaction?
I don't know, because I've seen so much in the sport over the year. Look, at the end of the day, it's not Johnny Fisher's fault. That's the reality of it. So, you can have an opinion that goes, what did he say? It was a disgrace, thinking back now. You can say whatever you want, can't you? But it's not Johnny Fisher's fault. It's not Dave Allen's fault. They get in there, they give us 10 grueling rounds of a fight, and they put everything into it. You can't blame Johnny Fisher for what happened. If he thinks it's a disgrace, it's his opinion. And look, again, on a business level, I'm a bit we face into things every day where people say things that you don't necessarily agree with, but you just get on with. Different for a family to obviously sit there and look at someone and go, well, what you said, I don't agree with. And I get that completely. And they're the only people that can settle it, aren't they? Doesn't matter what you and I think about what he said. It's them who are affected, who have a view of it.
Well, it could all be squashed and settled if Johnny puts in a big performance on Saturday night. Talking about families and things intertwining and whatnot, I guess just your initial chance to respond to what we saw from Chris Eubank Jr. on the Diary of a CEO podcast.
Yeah, look, he's... I'm not the kind of individual that's going to bring it's a family dynamic. I'm not going to respond on a platform from a family or personal perspective because it's not my personality. There's lots of things I'm sure I could say, but it's not me as a person, I'll respond to, on a professional standpoint, of I'm dangerous, I can't be trusted. I think, they were probably the key elements of it. The overhanging thing with me is always, if that's your perception of me, and that's your perception of the way we do business, why did your team want you to sign with us just a couple of weeks before you signed with Boxer? That bit I don't get. You can speak to a lot of people in the boxing industry. I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't like me. Right, I'm very direct. I'm very straight to the point. I don't sort of gloss over things. I tell you the truth. There's a lot of people that will say, "Well, I don't like it the way he is. I don't like things he said." That's fine, but I will always answer what I've done. I will always stand up to what I've done. So if you have an opinion of something I've done, you've heard I've done or whatever, I'll give you the reasons behind why I did it. I think with Chris, look, he's obviously using his platform. He's completely changed the public perception of himself in recent times, and fair play to him. Congrats. But if you want to have a conversation with me and sit down and have a conversation on a personal level and ask me, you did this, or say, but he's never done that, and that's the big difference. Is that what
gripes you then? The fact that this is being done and posted, and you're finding out by watching a YouTube video rather than just getting a phone call and going, let's have a chat, or let's meet for a coffee and sort of.
I'll sit with anyone and talk about. You may have a view on something you've heard of me over the years, right? So, if you came to me and said you did X, Y, Z, I'll explain to you the reasons why I did it. we don't have to agree, by the way. But I'm not going to sit and lie to you. I'm not going to sell you down the road and tell you a story. So for me, it's also very personal. Nothing in boxing bothers me. Like, if you speak to anyone, I'm emotionless. Like, boxing is, if you get emotional in boxing, you're mental. This is very different. But I also don't think this is the way to handle, I would never talk about my personal or my, I wouldn't go down that road. So I won't respond to him on a personal level because it's not me. I'll always come back to the business points. And if you want to talk about being trustworthy or straight to deal with, I mean, his closest advisor has got done for cricket fixing and fraud. So if you want to talk about honourable people that you work with, there you go. But like, the personal side is what it is. I'm a big boy. I have to get on with it, don't I? And look, if he ever wanted to have a conversation with me and sit down, I've spoken to him more in that press conference than I did in 9 years of, the relationship I've had. So, and I would never sit here and say, I don't like him, I don't, he said that, not me. And I'm not that kind of person. So, yeah.
When you made that comment about what do you and your partner go home and talk about after?
But that's what I don't respect. Like, I wouldn't talk about my missus. Like, I've been with my missus a long time. She's not public. She's not a public person. She's not someone like that. So I don't
interview her on Boxing Matters and
no, but I
what
don't.
Happens in the fight
I wouldn't respond to that. Like, I don't respect that. So, but I'm not going to respond to it because, from a personal perspective, it's not something I'd talk about. I will always answer any business question. If I sat across the table from him and he said, "You did X, Y, Z," I'll explain the reasons why I did X, Y, Z. Again, don't have to agree. But lots of people say a lot of things, I'm sure, in the business of boxing about me. I'm sure. But
behind your back or to your face, on camera?
Whatever. I don't really care. I know I'm a good person. If you don't, and that's enough for me. If you don't think that, no problem. I can't. I'm not going to go about my life changing the way I am to appease individuals that don't know me.
Why didn't Chris sign with Matchroom whenever this opportunity was had, whenever meetings were had? Is there one pinpoint reason?
No, they called me. I had multiple meetings with them, multiple conversations with Napa and Mary who represent him. Even I think the week before they announced the Boxer deal, they rang me about doing something. Look, if you think we're scumbags and we're untrustworthy, why do your team want you to sign with us? If you ask Napa and say, who's the best promoter that you would like Chris to have signed with, ask him who he says. And if he lies to you, I'll sit down and interview with him and say, tell me what you said in front of me. So, it suited him. It suited him and Boxer to be together. Is the reality. He's not with Boxer because they're the best promoter in the world. That's just me being quite I don't have to sit here and highlight mistakes that have been made. He's with them because it suited them, and at the time, good luck to him. But I also the other thing, I guess, from a professional perspective, is me standing in the way of things or creating problems. That's not me as an individual. I focus on the business we've got to do. I think I know we're the biggest promoter in the world. I have a very busy schedule. I work very hard. I don't spend my time focusing on derailing or jeopardising others' careers. It's not the way I am. Again, if you ask anyone, I'm not a jealous person. I want everyone to succeed. And again, I suppose the other thing on a professional perspective, praying that he loses. I wasn't praying anything. I didn't watch the last 6 rounds of the fight because I was dealing with my job, running an event. So that people have a perception of me, and people will watch that interview and have a further perception of me, and people will sit there and go, "You were going to put your weight-drained brother into a fight with the Conor Benn situation. You don't know me. You weren't there. You don't know what was going on. You don't know the process. You don't know anything." That's the reality of it. But that's life, isn't it? Everyone can have an opinion on you without actually knowing the facts or having one side of it. But I'm just not the kind of individual that's going to sit here and play that out over camera. If you want to sit down and have a conversation with me, more than willing to do so.
Does it make the rematch any different in terms of making the fight, or
doesn't matter to me? Well, like I said,
can I ask an honest question, and you can tell me, you don't want to answer. Has the relationship worsened during the Eubank Benn build-up? Because you've said you haven't had many conversations, so let's just take it as a point. You're not close. Has the relationship worsened during the Eubank Ben build-up, if I can ask that question?
No, the relationship...
Or was it just the same?
No, I suppose the only time the relationship when I got called a scumbag. Because, you know, I think when you've never had a conversation with someone about... I think, look, you can form a view on someone, but I think you should always have a conversation. You know, I'll give you an example. Do you remember Joe Cordina? We had I said something in an interview, and then Joe Cordina came to the office, and I sat down with him for an hour, and we had a long conversation about everything, and cleared the air.
You put a picture on Instagram?
Yeah. Like, that's life. No, but that's what life's about, you know, like... And that's me as an individual. I'll never shy away from anything. When you say my relationship, did I have a great relationship with him? No. You know, but when he called me a scumbag, did that affect me? Yes. Anyone else call me a scumbag? No. But it's different, isn't it? There's a lot of ties in this. You know, you have to understand, and it's not... I'm not the kind of person... In everything he said about me, I've never said a bad word about him. Ever. I don't think you could find me saying a bad word about him. I've never said, I hope Conor Benn beats him in this fight. I've never said anything. I've stayed the way I've always been. That's me as an individual, you know. And again, maybe rightly or wrongly, but, you know, it is what it is.
Well, let's talk about Conor Benn. Manny Pacquiao was fighting for the WBC at 147. See something about Conor Benn and Shakur Stevenson. He turned up in New York, and for someone who lost the fight, got a brilliant reception, which says a lot considering the fights in New York didn't really live up to that billing. Look at the response for someone who wanted to fight. There's obviously the rematch. There's, I don't know, Conor Benn is now a superstar. How many options you got on the table for Conor?
So many. Look, ultimately, boxing is about narrative. But it's also about delivering in fights that people want to watch. Conor Benn did that, and Chris Eubank. Respect to them both. You know, they got in the ring and they gave us a night we'll never forget. Conor Benn is in a position now where he can fight anyone. You know, even Ryan Garcia off the back. Like, losses don't define a fighter. Ultimately, what defines a fighter is storyline, narrative, and going in the ring and leaving everything in that ring. And, you know, Conor is in such a great position. You know, we all know, obviously, the rematch is there. That was signed prior to this fight. But there's so many fights for him for so many years. And I think when you look at the stars of British boxing, outside of AJ and Fury, you know, who are number one and number two, AJ number one, Fury two. Conor, I always said Conor and Chris were those next, were 3 and 4. I think Conor... You know, you don't have to look at his social media presence, everything he does. I think Conor's a bigger name than Chris. I think Chris is obviously coming off the back of that fight, you know, and he's all the media he's doing, obviously in a great position. But I think you have to remember Conor's 28 years old, I think, 28 or 29. Different stages of their career. Conor's got the opportunity for the next 5, well, as long as he wants to be a face of British boxing, and globally as well. And go into those fights against the likes of Ryan Garcia, etc. So I'm excited about what the future holds for him.
Going to be really exciting. Not sure about the haircut, though, I will say that. I was talking to Eddie about this earlier, Connor's. I'm not sure about the blonde.
Again, I'm on social media. I'm not on social media. Haven't seen it.
Have you seen it?
No.
That's one thing to, when you do get your Instagram back, don't look at Connor's haircut. Sorry,
I'll
Connor,
just spend a couple of days looking at it.
Slim shady. Final one, AJ, there was this elbow surgery that he's talking about, but I saw that he was sparring with Lawrence Okoli.
Again, I didn't see anything. Don't know what you're talking about.
This is a great tactic to avoid questions. I actually have
no idea.
idea.
You can look on my phone. I don't have Twitter or Instagram. Yeah, he's got that process going through now to be fully fit. I haven't seen what you've said about, so I can't comment on it. But the goal is getting back active, getting back in the ring, and look, this is the most important part of his career, because the decision he makes now is going to set up what's next. And we've got to ensure he's 100%. And that was always the focus. We always said that with the Dubois rematch, etc.
Final one, fight prediction. What goes down on Saturday night, if you can give me a round? I know it's not the normal
it's not
Frank
my
Smith style.
I just want...
I want it, so if you're to do it for the first time, let's see if you're the oracle. Let's see if it comes right.
No, because, I watched back a clip of some filming we did previously, and I said that Johnny Fisher would knock out Dave Allen in 3 rounds. So I got that royally wrong, didn't I?
Oh, I didn't see that clip, so fair enough.
Look, Johnny Fisher is obviously... We promote Johnny Fisher. He's our guy. We want to deliver great nights of entertainment, and I want to see a great fight. I think Johnny Fisher wins but I'm not going to go into the detail of how, because we all know I am not the oracle of boxing. I'm the oracle of events, and that's about it, mate.